Now on the Boston Celtics, opening up the mailbag for Vooch's impact on Jaylen Brown, empty roster spots, and free agency this summer.
Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I talk about them every Monday through Friday. I got bonus podcasts on weekends when they play, bonus podcasts some afternoons now. We're just pumping out the content here on Locked On, so make sure you're subscribed. You can watch the show on YouTube. The show's available everywhere. Podcasts exist. And yeah, just enjoy it however you want. If you're new to the show, my name is John Karalis. I am a beat writer covering the Celtics for Sports Illustrated's Celtics on SI. And I've been doing this job, a version of it, for about 20 years. This podcast for 10. So I talk about the Celtics. I've talked a lot about the Celtics. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On. You get $20 off your first purchase of tickets. All right, later on, we'll get into I like answering the fun, kind of like personal type questions at the end. We'll get into my lessons in the media, things I've learned about me, about myself. Interesting question. We'll get into free agency this summer, potential expansion draft, and how entertaining these Celtics are. Those are, oh, geez, I spelled entertaining wrong. Hold on. All right, that's better. And we'll start here with from Keegan. First of all, I'll start by letting you know that questions can come in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag, johnkaralis.com/mailbag. I did also post a mailbag on Celtics on SI. So if you go to if you just search Celtics on SI, you can get to the mailbag. And let me just pull it up right here real quick. Questions from Adam, Stuart, Kendall, Russ, and Michelle. If you ask questions, you can read the answers over at Celtics on SI. All right, let's get to Keegan here, who asks, will Vooch become to Brown what White is to Tatum, or am I looking for something that isn't there? He goes on to express the connection between Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis, and the connection between Jayson Tatum and Derek White, and that the question. The other question is, am I looking for something that isn't there? No, you're not. There is something there in these connections. I don't know if Vooch is going to be any particular kind of connection. And you never know, right? Because things develop at their own, on their own. So I don't know that Vooch is going to be here long enough this season to kind of have that connection. I think he's just going to go out there and try to set good picks and pop and make the right play and just be that connection for everybody. But, sometimes certain guys play well with certain players, and we have to watch that develop. So I don't know if Vooch will be that to Brown or if he will be that to Tatum. I've said this before, but I'll repeat it here. I think part of him coming off the bench is kind of a slow integration of Vooch. The other thing is you don't want to take away something from a player like Neemias Queta, who has worked hard and earned it, and isn't, you don't want to just say, oh, well, this guy's better than you, and we're putting you on the bench. You don't want to do that either. And then the other part is, I do think Tatum is going to need someone to clear some space in the lane. Jaylen can get to the rim. Jaylen's a better driver than Tatum, I think. Tatum is obviously good at driving. I think just that's more Jaylen's game in general. Tatum is more of the, stop, turn, fade, even though that's also Jaylen's game too. But Jaylen is, I think Jaylen can operate in traffic a little bit better than Jayson can. So I just think that getting someone out of Jayson's way is more helpful, just a little bit more helpful. So I think that Kata will come in. I mean, that Vucevic will be part of the bench and be paired with Tatum a little bit more, and will move into the starting lineup when Tatum moves into the starting lineup. And maybe that connects him to Tatum a little bit more than it does to Brown. But we'll have to wait and see. It's an interesting question. It's going to be an interesting dynamic to see develop. I've said this before also. I like the connection between Neemias Queta and Peyton Pritchard. I do see how certain guys have certain connections that work. This one we don't know yet. All right, let's get to Doug, who asks, any word on who the Celtics are going to sign for those last spots they're required to fill? No, not yet. First, we've got to see who ends up on the market. But we do know that Brad Stevens has laid out the plan, which one of them will be a ball handler, someone who can handle the basketball. And because right now you only have Derek White and Peyton Pritchard as your primary ball handlers. Obviously, Jaylen initiates a decent amount of the offense, and Jayson will initiate a fair amount of the offense. But you still need ball handlers. You know, when the pressure ramps up, I don't want in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, I don't want it to just be Jaylen and Jayson initiating all the offense. I want to have a point guard. I want to have those guys starting off the ball and catching the ball on the move. I've said this for years though. And it does drive me crazy sometimes when the entire fourth quarter offense is just Jaylen and Jayson bringing the ball up, and it becomes like, oh, pick and roll, find the mismatch, go one-on-one against the mismatch. I don't think it has to be like that all the time. I get why it is like that, but I think you can expand that. There's no reason for the ball not to be in Derek White's hands. He's one of your best fourth quarter performers. He's one of the best fourth quarter performers in the league. So get the ball into his hands and have Brown and Tatum working off ball to catch the ball on the move. We've seen these plays where it's like a pin down in the corner, guy comes up out of the corner, catches the ball. It can flow into a handoff with Queta. It can flow into a pick and roll with Queta, or this point, Vucevic. It can flow into a lot of different things. I want to see more of that when it matters the most. So those are they have the ball handlers there, but they do need another one just in case. They rebalanced the roster because they didn't have any kind of like real bigs they could go to in case one of them went down. We've seen Queta kind of like he had a right ankle issue and then he kind of turned his left ankle. I'm glad this is the All-Star break because that's going to allow him to get healthy. But they now have a little bit of depth there that you can kind of count on. Vooch, Queta, Garza, that's decent depth there. They don't have depth at point guard, so they're going to need a point guard. Whoever that is, I don't know who's available yet or who will be available. That's still to be determined. There's plenty of time here for buyouts and stuff like that to happen. So I don't know who specifically, but one of those spots will go to a ball handler. Another spot will go to somebody who is just kind of there. Brad laid it out. He said, we're not going to bring in somebody who, we're going to bring in somebody who's cool with not playing. It's been a familiar refrain from him in past trade deadline buyout types of situations. The guy who is just happy to be here, they need one of those. They've traded away a couple of guys. Well, I wouldn't say both of them are just happy to be here, but anyway, that's the scenario. A ball handler and just a veteran, may not play, but could in a pinch, Blake Griffin-ish kind of depth piece. So we'll find out more specifics as guys start to get cut. We'll come back. We'll talk about how entertaining this team is. We'll talk about free agency and how entertaining the league is. All of that stuff when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's now the Winter Games, and if you're anything like me, you're locking in for the events. I love watching. I like the Olympics. I'm a big Olympics guy. I like watching the skiing and the curling, and all of that stuff has been great. The speed skating is going to be super cool, and the drama of these games is great to follow along on FanDuel, because you can bet on things like medal counts and find your angle on sports you care about the most. It gives you a lot of ways to stay connected to the action. Niche events like the biathlon, the skiing and shooting. What a wild sport that was. I love these. Let's combine three things and call that a thing, and that's your sport. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic existence engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than FanDuel. Now, FanDuel will ask you when you log in to set a limit, set a budget, do that so you can gamble responsibly, whatever you can afford to lose. Now, do that over at FanDuel. Play your game. Today's show is also brought to you by Indeed. Hiring is a pain, and you shouldn't just let you settle for someone who's willing to take the job. You need someone who fits. You need somebody who's right, who's going to help your business forward. Indeed sponsored jobs is the move, because instead of hoping that right person just stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certification, and location. If I'm hiring, which I've done before, it's finding someone who can help is not it. You need someone that has experience. It's just like putting a team together. I'm talking about the Celtics putting a team together. You're not just going to be like, oh, I hope a point guard comes along. You want somebody that can do specific things. I need a big. They went and looked for a big that had specific skills, so you can do the similar thing with your job. Indeed sponsored job helps you target exactly the type of person you need. You're spending less energy sorting through mismatches, so it saves time. And with sponsored jobs, the candidates who actually fit are the ones who see the posts. So in the minute that I've talked to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires already on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spending less time searching and more time interviewing candidates makes just perfect sense. You want somebody who checks all the boxes, and you can do that with Indeed sponsored jobs. You get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Making Locked On Celtics the number one Celtics podcast on the planet, on the number one sports podcasting network on the planet. So thank you for doing all of that. I do appreciate it. We're going to be throwing bonus content out there. Like I said, game nights on Fridays or Saturdays. Plus, I just threw out a bonus podcast on YouTube grading the Celtics. So 20 minutes of me giving the Celtics letter grades. So go check that out. If you didn't watch it on YouTube before, check it out there. All right, let's get back to the mailbag. And those mailbag questions can come in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. If I'm not answering them here, if I'm not answering them on YouTube, because I'll have some bonus content, and they'll be on the Celtics on SI page at si.com. So go check those out there. Make sure just checking out, could be anywhere. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. I want to get to as many of your questions and answers. So I'm just putting them on all my platforms. All right. Edward says, bye-bye trade deadline. Can we now embrace how incredibly entertaining this Celtics team is? Inferno was fun, but Vooch makes so much more sense for us going forward. We're lucky to have a connected front office and staff. So I make no predictions, he says, but this group really has no ceiling. Okay. lots of points here in this comment by Edward. And let's just start with this. This Celtics team is entertaining. It is a fun team that generally works hard. I don't see too many lapses. I don't see guys being, the tired. Hey, we've been there before. We're going to just cash this in and lose. It's funny. Jaylen put up on social media comparing this year to last year. I think it's a little bit of a disingenuous comparison just because the last year's team I don't think they came with it every night. They had lapses. They had we ain't got it tonight. So it's a loss. It's okay. It's a loss. It doesn't matter. This year's team, the regular season matters so much more to them. And so they went for it. And that's great. They are overachieving. I think last year's team in the regular season was still a little bit on the underachieving side just because they didn't think that they had to do all of the things that they had to do. It's championship hangover. That's the hard thing for a team like that, especially when you have Porzingis, who's, a little bit, banged up. You have Drew Holiday, who's older. You just guys that understand the grind. And you're like, we're just not going to go all out. So that loss or that win over Brooklyn where Ugo hits the game tying shot and they're all like that win probably doesn't happen last year. So this is a great entertaining team that is, you can be proud of them. I think it's just a team that you can be proud of. So I am not a fan of the transactional stuff. It's funny. I really am the opposite of, I think, what a lot of people like to listen to and watch, which makes it tough. And I guess this is kind of sort of half answering a question that's coming up later, because I don't care. I don't get all worked up about the transactional stuff. Okay, here's a trade. Here's a signing. This is great. I care more about the stuff that's on the floor. And so I think the entertainment value of this team, it's definitely better. I think that's a better thing to focus on. So there you go, Edward. P, like P-E-A, says, I heard your podcast that the Celtics have successfully cleared their salary restrictions so they can get a new player, maybe not a superstar, but a solid player type. Is it too early to suggest some names that you think would fit into the Celtics system? So let me just one point on that. I may have given some wrong numbers as far as what the Celtics salaries totaled up to, because I was looking at a list that didn't include Jayson Tatum's number. So I think the number I gave was somewhere in like the 110, 120. It's like really I think it's like 175 that the salary is going to be. But my overall point remains the same. The money that they have to spend, every other point that I made is still correct. So if you listen to that other podcast, like P did, and said, okay, wow, they can do all these things. You can, but the numbers are a little bit, just a tiny bit tighter than I said before. So I apologize for that. So I don't know, again, specifically what names are going to be out there, because we don't know who's going to be, who's going to resign, who's not going to resign, which restricted free agents aren't going to get offers. So right now, I don't think it's appropriate to say they should target this player, that player, because not only that, we don't know exactly what kind of player they're going to be looking for. But I wanted to answer the question because we are kind of depending on Milwaukee and Memphis and some of these other teams, maybe Utah, to make some moves. And the Celtics have two tools to use. One of them is a $27.7 million traded player exception. They can absorb a contract there. The other is their full mid-level exception. And that's going to be at $15.1 million. The way free agency has, I think, started to shake out is the cap teams are going to make their pitches and try to get their players. After that, the teams with cap space, I should say, are going to make their pitches and try to get their players. Teams like the Celtics that are over the cap and can use a full mid-level, they're going to be targeting guys that maybe could take more, that could make more in some situations. But hey, instead of taking 18 to 20, take 15 from us and go try to win a championship because we've got Jayson Tatum. So they're going to be in the market to try to sign some of those guys. But if they can get in somehow on one of these trades this summer and bring in a guy who makes less than $27.7 million, then what the trade does impacts what the signing is going to be and vice versa. So some of it also depends on what does Vooch look like with Tatum? How does Vooch's summer, because he's a free agent, how does that go? What are the offers for him from other teams? What the Celtics do with their roster, combined with what the other teams do in trades, combined with what some other teams do with their cap sheets, it's going to throw a lot of different names out there. So I don't want to get into specifics yet, but obviously as we get closer to that, we're going to see some more specifics come out, and we're going to see what the Celtics plan is a little bit more closely. So that's when we'll get into specifics, and we'll definitely do plenty of podcasting on that. But I just wanted to at least lay out the landscape for that. All right, we're going to come back. We'll talk about the entertainment value of the NBA, expansion draft, and a couple of questions about me. All right, sure. Why not? We'll do that when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download that Game Time app because there's nothing like being in an NBA arena. And the Celtics have an upcoming West Coast trip. So if you're in one of those cities and you're like, hey, I haven't seen the Celtics in a while, or maybe I've never seen the Celtics, open up the Game Time app and see if maybe you can get some of these tickets, especially last minute. I've used Game Time plenty. If I want to go to a game, like every once in a while, I'll just say, hey, Providence College is playing, not the best season in the world, but I'm 10 minutes from Providence College, and I'll just open up the Game Time app and go to one of those games. So very simple. Open it up. When you open up the app, the numbers you see, the price is going to be the price you pay. No surprise fees or anything like that. You'll see the view from your seat. So if you're not familiar with the arena and you're like, what does section 114 mean? Well, the app will show you what section 114 means. So you can go see, maybe you like the view, maybe you don't. You can pick the section and use their zone deals. Game Time will pick the seats for you, and you can save some money that way. So it's great for last minute tickets. Everything's quick, intuitive, stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, if you're using the web, it's gametime.co, not .com. Thank you for being an everydayer and joining me every Monday through Friday, and for the bonus podcasts. Now, why not join the Everydayer Club? If you haven't already, you can check it out. You get access to ad-free audio for Locked On Celtics, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You have the Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a Celtics group chat and group chat for the NBA as well. So check it out, lockedonceltics.supercast.com, lockedonceltics.supercast.com. I'll drop a link in the show notes as well. Let's get back to these questions here. We'll wrap it up. Rapid fire here. Jay asks, I'd like your thoughts on NBA games overall. NBA viewership has been up this season. a change from a declining trend a few years back? Do you think that games in general were more fun and exciting to watch? And if so, what aspect? Or is it just the temporary effect brought by the new TV contract deals? Think the last part of that has something to do with it. Ratings are up because there's a lot more NBC, even though it's tough to find some of these games. I still can't even get it straight. The games on Prime tonight, are they in Peacock tonight? So it's a little confusing, but there are more games on NBC. There are more games coming on ABC. So I think the marketing pushing those has been strong, and that's leading to some of the viewership. But listen, I obviously like NBA basketball. I think it's fun, and I think most teams, even the ones that are tanking, have some exciting young players. It's not always great, but I do like this style of basketball. I think it's a nice kind of up-tempo, but it has a mix of some of the individual performances. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, because I am generally entertained by NBA basketball. But I think this product is good. I'm not turned off by the 3-pointers. I'm not even turned off by the tanking. Like, I understand it happens. And so that I think is where I differ from people, but I do think the speed of the game is good. The skill of the game is off the charts, and the 3-point shooting, even that is like just a bunch of like mini home runs. I do like it. Okay. Andrew says, I just found the Spot Track has an incredible expansion draft feature, although I was a little surprised to see that Hauser, Shireman, and Keita are listed as protected players, while Walsh, Amari Williams are available. Is that what you have predicted, or does Keith Smith have some explaining to do? Keith always has some explaining to do. No, can I be honest with you here? I haven't used the expansion draft feature. You know why? Because it's not happening this summer. And so I don't want to be too serious here. But I see a lot of people like, oh, I wonder who they would protect. Fun conversation for sure. But I never really cared to participate in that, because it was like, well, even if they vote this summer to expand, they're not doing an expansion draft this summer. Even if they say we're expanding, we're going to Seattle and Las Vegas, that still hasn't, the bidding process hasn't happened. Like we haven't gotten that close to the process of an expansion draft. Like, expansion draft won't happen for maybe another couple of years. So I'm sorry, Andrew. I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying it in general, because I see a lot of like people hear expansion, they go, oh my God, I wonder what would happen in an expansion draft. I don't care to get into it, because maybe I would leave Shireman off, but maybe in 2 years I'd keep him on. And I don't know who's going to be here in 2 years. So, you could get to a point where that's where you pull well, I'm not going to protect Jaylen Brown at 32 or 33 and a $70 million contract, or $60 million contract, because these expansion teams we don't think they're going to go take him. So there's no reason to protect him. And that's the game you want to play then, but you're not going to play it. Obviously right now you protect Jaylen Brown, but in 2 years, do you still? Probably, but maybe not. I don't know. You just don't know who the Celtics have. And so I don't want to make it sound bad, but I get too much other stuff going on to waste mental energy on this exercise. I'm sorry, Andrew, I'm not saying this to you, but I'm so focused on this season that I can't bring myself to that place. And this brings me very nicely into this question from Will. who says, what is something that you've learned about yourself over the years while working in the media and podcasting? What's your favorite part of what you do? And what is something you dislike the most? And so this is the thing I've learned about myself. If something doesn't make sense to me, I just am out. I don't care. I'm so when the expansion draft stuff is going on, my reaction is like, why are you people doing this? Why is this a thing? Why do you people care about who would be protected on this year's roster? Because that it's literally not going to happen this year. And I get it. It's like barroom conversation. There's a piece of my brain that says, John, these people are just having fun. Will you relax? But the dominant part of my brain is like, no, I can't relax about this because it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I don't even pay attention to it. I don't want to say I've become less fun. I am getting older. And so I think things get less fun as you get older. I do consider myself a fun person. Doing this podcast by myself, I don't have, like, you can tell, I know you can tell the difference between me doing this podcast by myself and me when I do this podcast with Tom or with another guest. I know you can tell, right? There's a piece of my personality that comes out. That's just me and the guys and me, busting chops and having fun with my friends, and not having somebody to play off of that all the time does kind of like make it's like this version of me and there's another version of me. And I think there's value to both, but what I do here is so much more explaining and so much more like nuts and bolts and trying to get people to understand certain things. That is like the core of my personality. I love explaining things. I love, I hate being misunderstood. I hate not being understood. I don't care if you like me or not, but not understanding my point drives me nuts. Not understanding why I'm making a point. One of my biggest peeves is when I can look at something bad that's happening and say, well, I understand why that happened. I understand why this bad thing or why this person did this bad thing. I understand why this person had this negative reaction. And people hear that and go, why do you condone that? Or understanding the process of bad things happening doesn't mean I condone it. In fact, I think it's the opposite. When I understand something bad that's happening on a basketball court, why somebody made bad decisions, say, yeah, I can understand why that happened. That you try to get into the head of somebody. So when you understand why that happens, you can say, I know how to make that not happen. You know what I mean? That to me that's how my brain works. So this is one of the things I've learned about myself over the years. There's so much bad that's happened, especially when I think about like my background in news. I've seen so much. I've seen the worst of humanity. I've seen the best of humanity. I've seen it in so many different, very serious and very frivolous scenarios. I've learned so much about human psychology that I think it has made me a little bit more serious about how I approach things. And I try very hard not to take myself seriously. I do not take myself seriously at all. The fact, in all honestly, I'm talking to you, but I'm also, if you take a step back, I've got just a camera in front of me. I got a dog sleeping over here. I got a dog sleeping over there. I just got a couple of lights and my computer. And if anybody's just were to walk in and watch me, I'm just talking to nobody in my office, but I'm not in my head. I'm talking to you. Like you and I are having a conversation right now. That's how I do this job. And that is actually my favorite part of what I do, is that I get to have a conversation with you through this. And like, I truly, honestly feel like I'm talking to you. In my head, I'm talking to you. I see a light, I see a lens, but what I'm seeing is kind of like a face. And I do enjoy that. My favorite thing that happens is I've had parents with a child, especially young daughters, who come up and say, we have listened to you on the way to school. Like I forget, I apologize. I forget names so easily, but I had a father and his daughter come say hi very recently within the past week or so. And saying like, we in car rides or just listening to you and all that stuff. Listen, it fills my heart with joy because I think about somewhere down the road, a speech at a wedding 10, 15 years from now, whenever, of remember when we would listen to podcasts on the way to school, and like, I just picture that happening, and I'll never know that it happens, but knowing that it's possible, that there's a connection there, that a father and a daughter, a mother and a son, like these deep connections formed, friends, family, everything that involve in some form my podcast that people can talk about and agree or disagree, or be like, oh, Karalis made a good point, or Karalis sucked today, or whatever it was. If that becomes any form of bond between two people, then, I'll die happy. Like that is my absolute favorite part of this job. No doubt, no question, nothing else even comes close. I don't care about meeting famous people. I don't care about any of that stuff. I see famous people all the time. I don't give a damn. Unless it's Kevin McHale or Larry Bird. In that case, I'll fanboy. But everyone else, I don't give a damn who you are. It's just, famous people are around me all the time, whatever. Those connections between, especially parents and children, when they say, we listen to your podcast and we talk about it and we bond over it, that I always want to cry. I always want to cry because just the people that I've had that with already, just I've done it. I am a successful person. That has given me joy, and that's it. So what I dislike the most is okay. What I dislike the most are the games I have to play to try to trick the algorithm into finding my stuff. That's the stuff is what I absolutely hate the most, is that no matter how good my podcast is or how good anything I've written is, if the algorithm has decided for some reason not to push it out, then the algorithm has decided. And if I have a bad day, an off day, I'm tired, my brain just isn't working as fluidly or whatever, and for some reason I nail a headline and it flies, and maybe that's the day that people look at my podcast and go, oh, well, I don't understand why people are watching this. And that kind of sucks. We're slaves to the algorithm, and I hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. Cannot stand it. And that's it. That's what I hate the most. Final question from Clayton. Hey, John, when will you live stream a game so we can see the game with you and hear your analysis in real time? I believe it would be awesome content for your fans. And yeah, I think it would be awesome content for me. How do I do that? This is the most 50-year-old moment I've ever had in my life. Anybody who's still listening at the 40-minute mark and knows how to for me to do that, I think I've seen it. I think I've seen. I'll research it. But maybe when they come back, maybe on one of these West Coast trips, with my job now at SI, I have a little bit more time during the game. So yeah, I'm happy to live stream and watch a game with you guys. I mean, that'd be cool. So I'll figure out how to do that. And it would have to be a road game because, if I'm not at the road game, if I'm not there, I'm watching from home, and we can do that. I can't do it during a home game because I'll be watching live. I don't know if I'm even allowed to at the arena, but yeah, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. If somebody wants to tell me how to do it, tell me. I'll try to research it too, but that's it. All right. Mailbag questions. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag. I'm way over time here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're following me on YouTube, especially because tons of bonus content comes out, shorts and bonus podcasts and all that stuff. It's everywhere, tons of content. So make sure you're subscribed everywhere. And then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.